This video is brought to you by Slate Black Industries. For grips and accessories, visit slateblackindustries.com.
So here we are, and I find myself again being Henry's instrument in the propagandizing of the HK platform. The UMP.
Ladies and gentlemen, like he said, the UMP. However, today we have the slump, the Slovenian UMP.
The slump, the Slovakian UMP. I had one job, which is to say that it is Slovakian, not Slovenian, and yet I said it's Slovenian.
The Slovenian UMP.
The slump is Slovakian. Slump. Now, not schlamper. That's a different word auf Deutsch. But the slump.
The
Slovakian
UMP. Same, but is it same? So, this was a full disclosure here. This was not a personal purchase. This was, and while most of the guts itself cost me a lot, the parts that I added onto this actually are worth more than the core of this thing. So sort of this is like a house that you have a heavy mortgage to, etc., etc., and this is a house that you sort of inherited, and you have to customize to your own taste.
Okay.
Now this was a new firearm that
I just want to know where all these inherited houses are.
I've been dealing with mortgages recently. What I did, however, is notice that the Stribog 45, actually the core of it could be made to resemble the UMP. And in fact, I realized afterwards that these things use UMP mags. Here, give me yours. So, you know, as they say, no cap on the 25 cap magazine. It uses the same magazines as a UMP. And guess who has a lot of UMP 45 magazines? Aha. So I thought it would be interesting to look at a firearm that I learned was a roller delayed.
Oh my God.
May I say a roller delayed?
So Henry,
subgun?
what you're telling me right now is that you stumbled upon, were introduced to the perfect combination of all of the things that you like. It looks like an UMP, it feels like an UMP, it smells like an UMP, but it has the guts of an MP5?
Well, you haven't shot this yet. And guts of an MP5 is a strong word here. Very strong word. Yes. It's like saying an AK is like an AR-15 because they're both gas operated. Say less. I want your first impressions on it, and we'll put, you know, Josh, mind you, just shot the UMP, and now he's going to experience So, you're almost out.
Literally one shot left.
Bolt hold open like the UMP. So, essentially,
Let me shoot a few doubles on paper here. I want to just...
How did that feel?
I mean, so you can definitely still tell that it's 45.
Right.
Right, like I'm noticing that the dot does have like a good bit of movement in it and dance, but it feels, I actually think that the recoil impulse is less than on the UMP.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but let's give you two shots immediately
Onto
on the
UMP.
UMP 45.
Less dot movement in vertical, but harder hit.
Right.
So snappier feel, less vertical dot movement, fairly predictable dot movement in return, but you do still get movement and return.
Right. So, does it feel anything similar between the
I mean, insofar as I'm shooting 2 subguns,
two? Okay.
probably akin to shooting an AR versus the AK. Like, yeah, I mean, they both feel like rifles.
So,
These both feel like subguns.
Hey, are you guys enjoying hanging out on range with us? Well, maybe you'd like to join the Patreon and hop into the private Discord. We'll see you guys there. Now let's get back to it.
so let's dial it back a little bit. So there's what I
Definitely doesn't feel like a roller delayed system though.
It doesn't feel like the MP5 roller delayed system because it's
Or
not.
the what's the 556 one?
HK93.
The 93. Yeah, it doesn't feel like either of those.
So the roller delayed system, truly, you kind of feel it's almost like a segmented long push, clack clack,
Yeah.
right? This doesn't feel like the clack clack. It's just like a reduction of the immediate
Snap. Yeah.
punch.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
like a muffled 45
Yeah.
on the UMP. But I also noticed more dot movement. Shocker, this is a first shots video, but I've actually prepped this, so it's Josh's first shot.
This is going to be the totally wild comparison here.
Right.
But I think the best example, if you guys have seen our roller delayed video where we talk about the G3 versus the SCAR recoils.
Uh-huh.
SCAR recoil, G3 recoil.
Interesting.
That's like, I mean, obviously like totally
That's
different, but in terms of the G3 where it's like, it feels like actually kind of soft the way you have yours configured, go check out that video after you're done with this one. Link we'll put somewhere. On this, it doesn't feel as snappy, but I see the sights being like in relation
So
to the
you
target.
still have to like track the sights probably.
For sure. And like, I think when I was trying to shoot pure doubles, and the second round was leaving, I knew it wasn't there when I'm taking the second shot. I'm just trying to push it and see if I can get it.
So now,
Sorry, I derailed you.
let's go back to the initial, right? What Josh, like, I love the UMP. I don't love it because I think it shoots better than the MP5, but I love it for its employment reasons and the way they designed it and some of the manufacturing changes that they made to it in order to meet those requirements. But what do you hear about the UMP has people so disgusted about the UMP?
I think everybody's again, not really my hill to die on. I don't care about any of this stuff. Like,
so
at
he has
all.
nothing to lose if he talks about it.
I can just sort of share my opinion on it. What I would say is most people's prevailing opinion or talk track on these guns, and maybe this is right, maybe it's not, but it's like you took the MP5 that has arguably one of the best recoil sensations. It feels like a pop gun. It's super easy to keep on target, especially when you're shooting it on automatic in a subgun configuration.
Right.
And you reduced or removed out some of the elements that make it so awesome, i.e. mostly the operating system, the recoil sensation, right? That's like mostly what I hear people talk about when they reference this.
Valid point too. Valid point,
Yeah.
because you're going from a roller delayed blowback system. You're arguably one of the best systems to be used, to be employed for subguns, because especially in a 9mm subgun, we don't have an MP5 and 45.
Right, to really
But
like
we
put it
have
up
one
against.
in 10mm.
Yep.
And guys who have used 10mm have talked about how much it tames a 10mm cartridge. And so, yes, you took that and turned it into something that, on paper, off of, like, if you went to a rental range and rented the MP5 and then rented a UMP, decidedly people would revolt against the UMP off the bat and say this is the worst.
Right.
But that's based off of pure shooting. The UMP comes at a much lower cost and is direct blowback, so the maintenance cycle is lower. And it also comes in 3 different calibers that you could field change with just a punch. See this pin right here? You punch it out, you switch the barrel out, you switch the bolt out, and then you use the magazine that corresponds to that new cartridge, and you're rechambering this from UMP 45 to UMP 40. Sometimes things that are important for an agency to adopt or a commercial entity to sell don't translate too easily to what the civilian market needs.
Oh, definitely true. Yeah.
So, just look at this silhouette real quick. Bad Boys, Sicario, COD, Modern Warfare, all of those things. The UMP silhouette is undeniably cool. How do you then come up with something that sort of still has the sleek attractiveness? The UMP's manual of arms, as I left that out, is one improvement over the MP5 that many people talk about. And how do you merge
so
those things?
Maintain that, but add back in some of that MP5 pizzazz that is otherwise being traded off for logistics.
So the MP5's main pizzazz is the roller delayed blowback system.
Right.
That's basically it. So how do you put a roller delayed blowback system into this? The manufacturing process is much more strenuous than, let's say, an extruded aluminum upper or a forged aluminum upper like an AR-15.
Okay.
So that itself makes it more difficult to put that into practice. So yes, this is a roller delayed blowback system, but it's a very interesting way they accomplish the roller delayed blowback system, and I shall show you.
So I do think the way they designed the rollers on this is very, very smart. Now, the MP5 requires a trunnion to wrap around the bolt head, which makes it wider and fatter, which is difficult for you to make if you had an extrusion, an aluminum extrusion upper. Now, if you look carefully right here, you'll see the roller. You can actually see it protrude up. It bumps up whenever the bolt goes backwards. If you haven't seen how the MP5 roller delayed system works, I've made multiple videos on it. My wife actually helped me illustrate on how parts of that worked, but let me take this guy out. This is the bolt head right here. You can see rollers on 1 and 2 sides, right? When you have the bolt in an up position, it is unlocked. So this is when it extracts and pushes a new cartridge in. But then once it seats, you can see the rollers bump out. Now that puts the force against the trunnion. Now, the MP5's trunnion has to wrap around it, right? So it has to be fairly fat. So you'll see this bulge right here to accommodate that trunnion. That's not easy for doing with extruded aluminum receivers. What the Slovakians did was take away the idea that it has to be wrapped around and having the rollers pop out both sides, and instead have the roller drop downwards. This makes sense if I take it apart a little more. Bear with me. Okay, so here we are. Giant recoil spring. Here we have it. So, when the bolt is in motion, this little counterweight is pressed backwards. And so it's in motion. Now, once it slams forward, your inertia will pull the counterweight forward, and the roller will get bumped downwards, like that. And you can see the roller. Once a roller is bumped downwards, like that, you can see it actually has bearing surfaces on this side and this side. So they were able to design the trunnion to have the bearing surfaces on top of where the MP5s would be, which is on around it. Now, they still had to enlarge the bolt a little bit right here to accommodate to give it the mass that it would require. But that was very smart, in my opinion, that they were able to relocate the rollers from the two sides on the snakehead design that the MP5 had to right up here and use a counterweight to push the rollers in and out. Very, very smart. And I quite like how people problem solve through these engineering techniques like that. Now, I do have to thank my friends over at My Guns Depot for having me, helping me on the transfer and having me film out there. But without further ado, let's get back to the video.
The roller is right here, as we've shown. You can see it pop up and down.
Yeah.
That single roller. And that basically accomplishes the delay in the recoil impulse. Now, the other things that I did to this, obviously, I put a UMP stock on it, which a BNT stock on this, which BNT obviously drew inspiration as an H&K part manufacturer.
It is shorter though, isn't it?
Well, in correlation to the pistol grip, It is, yeah, it is a little shorter.
I noticed that actually when I was grabbing it. It feels like this is a much more compact setup than what this was.
Yeah, so then I also put H&K sights on it, which these cost me a pretty fortune. But that then mimics what I've got on the UMP,
Okay.
essentially, right?
Yeah.
You've got standard sights. Your sight height in correlation to the stock is fairly similar. And so, gentlemen, and I didn't say ladies, because let's be real here. This then accomplishes the silhouette of the UMP with some characteristics of the MP5 and uses ultra reliable UMP magazines still.
Hand this back this way. So one thing I also noticed picking this up is the weight difference.
Yes.
This package, even without illumination, weighs substantially more than this with illumination. So what's the driver there? Is it just the aluminum in it?
Yeah,
versus
the receiver.
polymer?
So this entire thing is injection molded. I mean, H&K has had a very, like, we work in the injection molded sphere.
Yeah.
There is a huge difference between good and bad polymers. The fiber mix, the everything, H&K really has it down. They've done a really good job in coming up with a polymer that is highly durable. The Stribog, I will say, is actually, as far as the receiver, it shares more traits with the BNT, what is it, what am I thinking of?
The
APC 45.
45.
APC
okay.
45, the APC 9s, I think share more of a trait with the receiver on it. So if you look really closely, it actually resembles also an APC 45 with a really long UMP mag, however. But that's why, because the receiver resembles that. However, the APCs are also direct blowback and not roller delayed. It's got a hydraulic buffer in the back, so it feels a little bit more gentle than the UMPs, but that's essentially it. You could say it's the slump, the Slovenian UMP, but you could also say that it is the Slovenian APC 45.
Do you have an empty?
Yeah.
I just want to see something really quick. So bolt hold open,
Yep.
and then you have either press here or paddle release.
Correct. But the press, I will say, is very difficult.
It's quite
to
stiff.
activate.
Yeah. It's quite stiff. And then mag goes in, and you either have a bolt release
Right.
here, or can you? I'm assuming you can charge it.
You can charge it, yeah.
And so it's a non-reciprocating handle,
Mm-hmm.
which is good because I do my whole.
Yeah.
So mag goes in, send it home. Well, sent that last one. I will also note just, I really like the safety on this. Safety is super, super, super lean. We'll do a little rollover of this, a little B-roll over this.
Okay.
But that safety is super lean, meaning it's almost flat to the side of the gun. There's so little there, but it has just enough tension. It's perfect. I can just flip it with my thumb to put it on and strike it with my trigger finger as I come back to take it off.
Yep.
So super, super neat. I think it's safe to say, having, just shot, I don't know, I've only shot a mag or two, but this feels pretty easy to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is pretty easy.
Yeah. Now, guys, whenever the
Mind if I
Go ahead.
blast a few? Pretty
So-
easy Mozambiques.
at the 10 meter, I mean, you're dead. If that red hits your head, you're dead. So
Yeah, this is a pretty shootable. And then the 25 or the 30 here is like kind of cake too.
yeah.
Feels good.
So I mean,
I would love to get this with a can on the front of it. Change the balance just a little bit, make it maybe sit just a little bit differently. That'd be cool.
okay, I do have one complaint about the slumps or any of the Stribogs. You will not mistaken it for a UMP or an APC from afar. They essentially have the equivalent of man tattooed over your forehead or woman tattooed over your forehead nowadays. And by having the aesthetic choice of tattooing their subgun up. Now, nothing against tattoos. I'm just saying, I would not recommend tattooing things on your forehead is what
This
I'm
is
saying.
kind of massive billboard on the side of the gun billboarding, right?
Yeah, and that kind of goes against the whole idea of if you want to sell to a population that kind of wants to LARP as a BNT or a UMP. Yeah, but I have a way of remedying
And
this.
it's on this side too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a way of remedying that. I'll show in a different video. But still, there's that. The other thing that it did is that it missed out on a power move.
It does not lock up. It's a straight pull only.
It is not an H&K.
Yeah. So just one more in power stroke. Yeah. So yeah, you can easily rack.
Yeah,
you can
it's
still rack
easy
it
to
easily.
use. And the early ones were reciprocating. So that's
Oh,
one
really?
thing. Yeah, that's one thing that they fixed from the early one.
That seems like a pretty important improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
It's fairly shootable.
yeah, this thing's a pretty easy shooter.
This is LAX, so this is laxative munitions that keeps on choking up the UMP. The UMP has eaten everything except for...
That wasn't a good start. I didn't really ride it. I thought I jammed it pretty good.
Okay, maybe...
One more time.
Okay.
Okay,
Go
let's
ahead.
try.
Wow, it seems to clear the Freedom munitions, no issues.
It did, except for that first one
Except
that
for
didn't.
that first
That
one,
could have
yeah.
been. That could have, in all seriousness, just been me riding it a little slow on the way in with a full mag.
Ah.
That could have been.
Okay, so it seems to run munitions that the UMP does not like to run.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, partially the UMP, when it jams up on that magazine, I think it's a short stroke, so I'm wondering if LAX basically
Lighter
like,
load.
undercharged their munitions.
Yeah, lighter load.
And so I keep on getting short strokes with that ammo.
Yeah.
That said, if you were interested, if you were in the market for something like an UMP, would you buy the Slump, Josh?
Well, I guess that depends on whether or not I was buying this from a collectible, it must be stamped HK standpoint,
Who would do that?
or if I just wanted something that was like a 45 caliber subgun, PCC, PDW that shot well, or that feels like it shoots nice. Arguably, I would say arguably feels like it shoots a little bit better
Okay.
in terms of like the recoil impulse and the repeatability. And if it were that ladder camp, and I was just looking for sort of like, let's call it like UMP vibes, then something like this seems to make a lot of sense. I also imagine that it's probably quite a bit easier to get purchase and doesn't cost you
The
what an
barrier
UMP
to entry
costs.
is far lower
Yeah.
for that than it is the UMP. And quite frankly, if you wanted to move away from the UMP vibes, there's more aftermarket stuff for that than there is for the UMP in order to kind of play with. So if you're like an accessory type of guy and you want UMP vibes to start with and you want to change it down the road, it's whatever, you know. It's got M-Lock in the front. You can put Slate Black Industries stuff on there, the key to it, although I did not put one on there, failure on my part. You've also got stocks with Picatinny rail,
Oh, like
rear
the
stock
1913
adapters,
adapters.
yeah, so you can-
Got it.
on the modularity side, it's more so. So in the long term, I would say the UMP, it's still used by a lot of agencies around the world. So if you're doing like a massive purchase, maybe the UMP solution is you if you work for an agency. But if you're a civilian looking for something to work with, I think your assessment's spot on. It's a slump. It's not an UMP. It is its own thing. It vibes like an UMP in certain ways. It does not have zero recoil. I have heard some people say, wow, it has so little recoil. It doesn't have zero recoil.
I mean, so little is all within context.
Right. But it's, as far as translating the recoil impulse to the AR-15 shooter, I think that one does it easier. We didn't talk about the trigger, but the trigger on that
Feels
thing,
fine. Yeah, feels fine.
it's an AR trigger inside.
Yeah.
So you also
Oh, is
have,
it?
yes.
Just straight AR?
Yeah. So
Okay, this feels like a stock AR.
it is a
trigger.
stock AR trigger. If you're an AR guy and you're getting into the subgun market and you want to shoot 45, Maybe this is a steeper jump down the rabbit hole than the slump is as you're getting into this type of firearm. However, if you're a collector, like you were saying, and you're genuinely interested in the development of the UMP and you're thinking maybe this has a silhouette that scratches that itch that you have, I don't think it will.
Yeah.
I just don't.
So
it's not it.
that's the collector's gun, and this is the shooter's gun.
If we have to define, I suppose, because this is actually very shootable in its own way, in my opinion. Obviously, I am not at all biased on this. But that said, yeah, I mean, good job on Grand Power adopting the Stribog into the 45. The slump and the ump are not the same, but they have different traits that make them attractive to different people.
And with that said, let us know which you like in the comments below. Till next time, we'll see you on the range.
716, this is Gillnet 6, 4 Vic, 8 packs, REDCON 1, green to green, how copy, over.
096, this is 716, roger, over. 16, 091, 1 pack, green, green, over. This is 716, roger, over.
16, 2, 1 Victor, 2 packs, REDCON 1, over.